the Arizona Cardinals have become now the 10th most attractive job opening after the Bills hire Sean McDermott. Plus, are they just going to outright hire Vance Joesph as well? I'll tell you why it's a terrible decision. Let's talk about that and much more in this edition of the Ben Garcia Show.
The Ben Garcia Show. Yeah. Woo. Best show in the land. Yup. Listen. Come and get your information from Ben Garcia. Get the latest on your quarterback, running backs, and receivers. Tune in, so any other show you don't need them. Any news that he giving out, please just believe him. Giving out the latest prediction and top-notch analysis. Wanna hear the truth, better have thick skin like callus. The latest move that your team just made can be damaging. The dudes ain't speaking no facts, they just be rambling. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. Yeah. Lights, camera, action, turn on the show, go get the cameraman. The Ben Garcia Show.
What is up? Welcome back into yet another edition of the Ben Garcia Show. Wherever you guys may be listening, however you may be listening, viewing, watching this edition of the Ben Garcia Show, appreciate you doing so on this Monday, Martin Luther King Jr. morning. Ah, man, dude, I cannot tell you how frustrated I am with this Arizona Cardinals team. I cannot tell you how frustrated I am with this team. And part of it has to do with the fact of what happened this morning. This is the problem with doing the leave no stone unturned bit that the Arizona Cardinals and a lot of bad organizations like to do. This is what happens when you waste your time interviewing Matt Nagy. This is what happens when you waste your time interviewing Anthony Weaver and Vance Joesph. Is even when jobs get filled up, what did I say on Friday? And this wasn't an original take that other people haven't said before. But the point of it was, how could we just take our sweet ass time to the point where now the Bills have fired their head coach? And now the Bills become the most attractive job on the market. And why is that? Well, pretty plainly, pretty simple. There's a quarterback by the name of Josh Allen who gets to quarterback them each and every week. So not a bad deal to be next to. And give me half a second here, guys. I got to make sure that this, for some reason, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties this morning. Let me fix this. I apologize. We are back. But again, now that you have the Buffalo Bills open, you become the worst job opening on the market and move everything down. We were talking about, okay, well, if they're the worst job market on the, if they really are the worst job market on the block, how does that, how many teams would have to hire their head coaches before the Cardinals maybe eventually hire theirs? Now you might be forced to hire a guy like Vance Joesph for your head coaching vacancy. But this is why taking your sweet ass time never works out. And that makes you get the 5th, 6th most wanted guy on your list. And it's absolutely asinine. It's abysmal. It's poor management. And I wake up to the news this morning. I don't even have enough time to prep for it. But it's so painfully obvious that this could have been a scenario. And this is the avenue the Cardinals continue to go down. You know, this is kind of my thought on the Arizona Cardinals. Everyone has that one friend that believes everything that they're doing is right, despite their life situation, despite maybe their marital situation, despite maybe their friendship situation. It's a guy you met in high school who eventually one day decided he was going to join a Ponzi scheme, or he was going to join a pyramid scheme. And then he wasn't going to get married because it was stupid and he didn't believe in it, and college was a scam, and all these different types of ways of life. And they keep telling you their way is better. They tell you that working out is overrated. They tell you that, getting a 9 to 5 is overrated because they don't want to be a slave to the man. They tell you having kids is stupid. And their life consistently looks like a mess. Every time. That's the Arizona Cardinals. They continuously and effortlessly roll these same things out each and every year. And they expect it to be any different. And it's just embarrassing to this point, to where Cardinal fans, when they see the Shawn McDermott firing, they say to themselves, yep, that makes sense. Now you have to push another guy back, because that job becomes the number one job opening in the NFL. And the Ravens still haven't hired their head coach. And the Bills now have a head coaching opening. And the Steelers are more attractive than yours. Whereas if the Cardinals would have not let Robert Saleh leave the Zoom meeting the other day and made him an offer he couldn't refuse, this wouldn't have been a problem. This is why it doesn't matter how poor of a job the Arizona Cardinals appear to be at times. If you give the head coach you want the control and the money they desire, they will come to Arizona. They will come to Arizona. But when you do the same old song and dance each and every year, this is what happens. You fall back into poor ways. And the thing that was so painfully obvious on Friday was, well, what if the Buffalo Bills lose? What could happen? That would then make 10 job openings from the end of the season to now of what became open. A third of the NFL looking for head coaches. And 3 of them are the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Bills. Either have Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, or such stability at ownership, coaches are foaming at the mouth to get that job. So there's my instant reaction to the Shawn McDermott firing. It was so obvious that it could have happened. And the Cardinals continue to feel no sense of urgency. That, wait a second. Maybe we should be pushing it up just a little bit quicker. Because coaches like Robert Saleh, Cardinals offered him today. He'd say, wait a second, I gotta go check out that Bills situation. Stability at ownership, good general manager, despite his inability to draft wide receivers, Josh Allen. Where you are offering nothing compared to that. And it kind of throws everything out of whack this morning, but let's follow it up with this. Did you watch the 49ers Seahawks game on Saturday night? I know that feels like an eternity ago. We live in a what have you done for me lately world. But did you watch that Saturday night game between the Seattle Seahawks and the San Francisco 49ers? I understand some people have gone crazy for Robert Saleh as the Cardinals' next head coach. And just so we're clear, I don't want anyone to think that I'm picking on them. If they do believe Robert Saleh should be the next head coach for the Arizona Cardinals, I don't want to pick on those people. I don't want to go after them because I really, truly get it. I do. Robert Saleh is a defensive-minded guy who has shown his ability to be one of the best defensive minds in the NFL. He is a leader amongst men. I get all of that. You see the way he interacts with people on the sidelines. The players absolutely love him. You see him normally be able to call games where even with 2 hands tied behind his back, he makes them competitive. But there's a reasoning why offense is king, especially in this version of the NFL. And the Seattle Seahawks put a fork in Robert Saleh's defense. They feasted on his defense. It was never close. They never slowed them down. And from start to stop, the Seahawks throttled him. Klint Kubiak did whatever he wanted with Robert Saleh's defense. And they offered no tension. They offered no pushback against the offense. I understand that I understand that there are a lot of people that are big Robert Saleh guys. And again, I'm not picking on those people. If you're a massive Robert Saleh fan, I get it. He's a leader. The players adore him. And defensively, most of the time, he's a maestro. But if they hired Robert Saleh, I would not be at all for 1 second going after this organization for making a bad decision, because it wouldn't be a bad decision. He's a smart defensive head coach who shows the ability to be a leader, and the players love him. I can never kill someone for that. But offense is king in this 2026 version of the NFL. And even if you bring Robert Saleh over, and the best case scenario happens, he brings over Mike McDaniel as his OC. And just so we're clear, that'd be a home run hire. But for how long? And what happens when Mike McDaniel eventually gets a head coaching job? Well, Ben, what do you mean? What do you mean by the fact that they're what do you mean by the fact that despite all, that they worked him up and down the field and that offense is king? If Robert Saleh's guy gets a head coaching job, what do you do with your offense then? We saw what happened with the New York Jets. It was actually a very similar situation, and it's what concerns me about Robert Saleh. It concerns me that he had a chance to fix the quarterback situation in New York, and he chose to do it with 45-year-old Aaron Rodgers. 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, if we're being serious. He fired Mike LaFleur, and he brought in Nathaniel Hackett. Robert Saleh might be a maestro defensive head coach. He might be a maestro defensive-minded guy. But from what we saw in New York, he's a bit tone-deaf offensively. And here's my guy. The Lord is my strength. What do you mean, bro? The Seattle defense was cooking. They had so many turnovers to win them that game. The offense for the 49ers couldn't do jack. Don't disagree. The defense didn't provide any pushback either. They dropped 34 points on Robert Saleh's defense, which, by the way, I would say 41 points because Robert Saleh's defensive players, some of them play on special teams. But I'll be fair. That's a special teams role. I'll just give him 34 points. The numbers are the numbers. And in a consistently offensive-driven league, the offensive head coaches tend to win. I mean, look at DeMeco Ryans this weekend. If they had an offensive-minded head coach, does CJ Stroud have 5 turnovers? I don't know. And that's not entirely... And that's not entirely fair. So I don't want to go down that route. But Klint Kubiak's offense, with Sam Darnold at the helm, which before this season no one took seriously, carved it up. And in an ever-changing offensive league, you have to continue to go to the offensive side of the ball. You have to. It's not even a discussion anymore. And honestly, I would feel so much better about Robert Saleh. So much better about Robert Saleh if the Cardinals had the quarterback. But they don't. And that is a massive red flag for this team. They have got to find a coach that can help elevate that position. I'm not looking for the Cardinals to build this defense that puts Kyle Shanahan and Sean McVay in a box. It's much easier to find the defensive coordinator than it is the offensive coordinator. And so at this point, I don't know. I get why people like Saleh. I don't understand why they don't go crazy for a guy like Klint Kubiak, which, by the way, hasn't been fired as a head coach like Robert Saleh has been. I think it's a bit crazy. Here's the other thing. Here's the last piece of this. It looks like that with most people's educated guess, the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals will likely be Vance Joesph. And I think it's incredibly unfair, and I think it's crazy to say that that's the only head coach that would take this job. Because I continuously say, and I will continue to say, that Vance Joesph is not the right fit here. As well as, well, no head coach wants your job. That's a flat out lie. If coaches were given the correct control and the right amount of money, they would come to Arizona in droves. And as of last night, Albert Breer said this: I like the match of Vance Joesph with the Cardinals. No, you don't. With Joesph having spent 4 years in Arizona as a DC, the question then will be whether the team is willing to wait for him as the Broncos make their way through the playoffs. So there's that. He said that, which leads me to believe he's hinting at Vance Joesph. Benjamin Albright, who was in my mentions yesterday. I didn't even at the guy. He just, showed up in my mentions, and him and I had a fun discussion about Vance Joesph. Vance Joesph, for him, still tends to be the favorite. Gambo last night said again, from the beginning, he thought Vance Joesph was going to get the job. Connor Orr also said he believes Vance Joesph will probably get the job. 4 reputable reporters. All 4 reputable reporters. Connor Orr, Albert Breer, John Gambadoro, Benjamin Albright are all pointing towards Vance Joesph is probably the guy. And the question is not why would the Arizona Cardinals make this hire? We know why they would. It's one blanket statement. Michael Bidwell's cheap. And he wants to go the cheap route again. If we are trying to break this down from an analytical standpoint, let's try to do it. Let's go down that route. There is no world where you can bring Vance Joesph on. None. The questions I have with Vance Joesph is, what do you see in him as a defensive coordinator that leads you to believe he's going to be a great head coach? Here are some of Vance Joseph's defensive statistics. He was the Cardinals defensive coordinator from 2019 to 2022. In 2019, I apologize, guys, bear with me here. This is a lot of data, but I did this last night, and I think it's worth talking about. In 2019, he was 32nd in yards allowed per game. That's worse than the NFL. Second to last in passing yards per game. 24th in rushing yards per game. And 28th in points per game, with 27 points a game given up. In 2020, he was 13th in yards per game, 10th in passing defense, 22nd in rushing defense, and 12th in points per game. In 2021, 11th in yards per game, 7th in passing yards per game, 20th in rushing yards per game, and 10th in points per game allowed. And in his final season in Arizona, this was his last chance to make a big debut splash. By the way, they had one top 10 scoring defense in his 4 years, and they were 10th. In 2022, they were 21st in yards per game. They were 24th in passing yards per game, 14th in rushing yards per game, and second to last in points per game. That was on a defense that featured J.J. Watt. If I'm not mistaken, Chandler Jones was still there. Budda Baker, Isaiah Simmons, Zaven Collins. They drafted players for him. And they were the second to worst statistical defense in the NFL. And you want to bring that guy on. Forget about Vance Joesph wanting to be the head coach. Forget about Vance Joesph becoming the Arizona Cardinals' next head coach. Forget about all of that. My question is, what makes him qualified to be the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals? Is it his ability to figure out the quarterback position? Go back to his days in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Where was that? They couldn't figure out the problem over there. In fact, I want to make sure I have this correct. I think Vance Joesph was when he was the head coach of the Denver Broncos. I apologize. So, what makes Vance Joesph qualified to be the Arizona Cardinals head coach? Forget the fact that it would be an absolutely insane and disastrous hire. In 2017 to 2018 with the Denver Broncos, what did he show as a head coach? That he should be the head coach again for another team. Did he figure out the quarterback situation there in Denver? No. Well, that's a big problem here in Arizona. He was fired after 2 seasons. That's shorter than most coaches get. Most get about 3 years. Well, what about his defenses in Arizona when he was the defensive coordinator? Forget the fact that he was already in the building. The Cardinals had the chance to fire Cliff Kingsbury early and make Vance Joesph the interim head coach. They chose not to do it. Forget the idea that Vance Joesph, as the Cardinals defensive coordinator, in his final season, was 21st in yards per game, 24th in passing yards allowed per game, 19th in rushing yards allowed per game, and 31st in points per game. When you think about some of the best defensive coordinators in the NFL, when does Vance Joesph come into play? Is he a top 10 defensive coordinator in the NFL? He might be top 15. So, if he's bad at figuring out the quarterback position, and in his final season in Arizona, you had the opportunity to hire him as your head coach, to hire him as your interim head coach, and you didn't do it. If you interviewed him in 2022, when you fired Cliff Kingsbury and you still said no, in his final season in Arizona, where his defensive statistics are terrible, and you didn't hire him then, what makes it different now? Why didn't you just hold on to Jonathan Gannon? And here's the best argument to be made. Here's the best argument to be made. If Vance Joesph is out on the market right now, there were 10 head coaching openings from the end of the season to now. How many of them, forget about hiring Vance Joesph? How many of them forget about just hiring Vance Joesph? How many of those job openings have Vance Joesph as a finalist for their head coaching vacancy? How many of them? How many of them? It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. It would be a disastrous hire to bring Vance Joesph here. And I see people in the chat saying, well, Ben, what about Sean McDermott? We can get to Sean McDermott in a bit because he fills a lot of holes too. But the biggest problem is a bunch of these reporters are pointing to Vance Joesph being the next head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. Connor Orr, Benjamin Albright, John Gambadoro, I just said that. Albert Breer. They're all pointing to, Vance Joesph might get this job. And it would be so incompetent. It would be such a disastrous hire. I think Cardinals fans would be begging for Jonathan Gannon to be back. Same with I think Cardinals fans and media alike would be begging for Jonathan Gannon to be back. Would be begging for it. And you look at the statistics. 21st in yards per game in his final year as the defensive coordinator for the Arizona Cardinals. 21st in yards per game, 24th in passing yards per game, 14th in rushing yards per game, and 31st in points per game. When you think about all the defensive coordinators in the world, when you think about all the defensive coordinators in the NFL, is Vance Joesph a top 10 defensive coordinator? I would lean towards no. Is he top 15? Maybe. Does that warrant him being a head coach again? What about the quarterback spot that you desperately need filled? Where is he shown in his career? He knows how to fix that. And bring in another smart offensive mind to help fix that side of the offensive side of the ball. Where has he shown it? Where has he shown it? And then the biggest question is, forget about all the head coaching vacancies that could potentially hire Vance Joesph. I don't even want to go that far. How many other head coaching vacancies will have Vance Joesph in their top 3? We'll have them in their finalists to actually get the job. Much less how many other teams would hire him. That's an easy question. 0. And you're going to go dumpster diving and pick up the scraps of the NFL. Okay, man. Okay. Don't say you weren't warned. Because it's very obvious that this is going to be a disaster. An absolute, abject disaster. And everyone sees it besides you. Or maybe you do, and you're so worried about your wallet that you don't really care. And here's the obvious question that's kind of wild to me. Does Michael Bidwell know if he hires a bunch of bad candidates and pays them, Cliff Kingsbury, Jonathan Gannon, and now potentially Vance Joesph, he's going to have to fire Vance Joesph in 2 years, 3 years, and you're just going to be paying all those guys still, where you could just pay one really good candidate and not have to worry about it anymore? Don't tell me that no one wants to come to Arizona. It's a flat out BS lie. It just is. Anyone will go anywhere if you give them the right amount of control and the dollars amount that they want. Someone said to me, John Harbaugh got $100 million. That's way too much. Thank God. And my question is why? Why is it too much? Well, $100 million for John Harbaugh? I mean, he keeps flaming out in the playoffs. Okay, it's not my money. They could give John Harbaugh $100 million a year. It doesn't go against the salary cap, and it ain't my money. I don't care what they pay him. I don't care. If you give coaches the right amount of control and the right amount of money, they will come here. Any of them. Just so we're clear, any of them will do that. And you want to roll it in the slums with some of the worst head coaching candidates that I've seen. By far, the worst head coaching candidate on the by far he's the worst coaching candidate that's getting real interviews in Vance Joesph. And it feels, unless the Cardinals are just playing chestnut checkers. And my question is, when people say that, when people say, well, no one actually knows. No one actually knows what's going on. My question is, have the Arizona Cardinals earned the benefit of the doubt for you to say that? Have they been so competent of an organization that you can say, well, no one actually knows. I mean, come on now. Like, you don't actually know. I don't actually know. Like, let's let it play out. Have they earned the right to do that? Have they earned the benefit of that? To say, well, they usually make the right decision. Let's not just believe everyone else. Let's let it play out. No, let's not let it play out. Let's shame them now. They haven't earned the right to show that they are a competent enough organization that you believe they're just going to do the right thing. The reasoning why everyone's freaking out, including myself, is because they always do the wrong thing. Because hiring Vance Joesph would be so Arizona Cardinals, it hurts. And it's such a predictable disaster that you're actually a little surprised that they would do it. Because everyone, from casuals to experts to outside fans to the people in the NFC West, know Vance Joesph would be an abject failure here. And people want me to say, well, no one actually knows. Maybe you haven't been watching the same team I've been watching. This is exactly the type of thing they would do. Exactly the type of thing they would do. So, it's crazy to me. It's crazy to me that people are still giving the Cardinals the benefit of the doubt. Here's the other thing. Again, like, people come, and there's 120 of you guys watching, looks like 30-something of you are on YouTube. A lot of you are on Twitter, which means I can say this, and a lot of people will understand this. I put things out on Twitter all the time, and I've realized I've had to preface a lot of my tweets that aren't videos, like that are actually thought out. A lot of my tweets are just like a diary. Like, I just put whatever I'm thinking on social media because, like, that's what social media is. For me, it's like a place to have topic of discussion, thought process. And so I have to know now that because my social medias have a bit of motion with them, that I have to watch what I say. But I put out a tweet on Saturday night, Friday, whatever. And this one was a very serious tweet. Like, over the weekend, I tweeted out, like yesterday, I said, could the Texans use Kyler Murray's services? I never said trade Kyler Murray for CJ Stroud. Hell no. But I tweeted that out because I was like, it's a good thought exercise. And CJ Stroud is currently throwing another interception right now as we speak. And people were like, you're trolling. And I'm like, I don't know. It was a half-baked idea, just kind of thinking about it. Plus, at the end, I was like, it's just a thought. But here's the other thing. I put out a tweet that the Cardinals didn't even give, like, Kevin Stefanski, I think, would have been the best realistic choice for the Arizona Cardinals at head coach. And I said to that, I said that would have been the best realistic shot for Kevin Stefanski as the head coach of the Arizona Cardinals. And then I also said, and the Cardinals decided they weren't even interested in interviewing him. And a bunch of people said to me, including Kent Summers, who used to be an AZ Central's guy, who used to come on the radio show I was on, love Kent, always very nice to me. But he was like, well, how do you know? And Benjamin Albright was like, well, how do you know? And several different people around the Arizona sports landscape. Well, how do you know? Well, I don't know. I know what's been reported. that the Cardinals weren't interested in him. And I also know that the Cardinals haven't earned that benefit of the doubt. It's to where when people report, it's like Dylan Brooks getting a technical foul. You're just going to give him a technical foul because you're just assuming, yeah, he probably did it. When people report that Kevin Stefanski was never a realistic option here in Arizona, it sounds like for both sides, I'm not going to think too much of it. I'm going to be like, yeah, that sounds about right. And people out there who are defending this organization, well, you don't actually know that they did not bring him in for an interview. You don't actually know that they didn't reach out to him. Okay, I don't 100% know. But if the Cardinals have the Cardinals earned the benefit of the doubt for you to say that without any worries? Well, no, but you still shouldn't say it. No, I'm going to. And I will continue to do it. Bonkers, man. It's crazy to me that people still defend this organization. It's crazy. Oh, you don't actually know. Actually, I do know. This is what this organization has continued to do. So, frustrating. I don't know, man. I feel like I go on social media and I say those kind of things to hold the organization accountable, and I have a bunch of people who are all good people. I'm not going after people as people. I'm talking about sports takes. Well, you don't actually know. Yes, I do. Yes, I do. What I do know is they have not earned that benefit of the doubt. Let's talk about this final thing on this Martin Luther King Jr. Day, Monday morning. What do we think about Shawn McDermott as the next head coach for the Arizona Cardinals? I didn't have a lot of time to prepare for this because I woke up this morning and Shawn McDermott was fired. So here are my first reactions to Shawn McDermott as the Arizona Cardinals head coach. Here's the one thing that you have to preface it with. Shawn McDermott is probably going to make a lot of money. Are the Cardinals willing to give up that money, and are they willing to give up that control? Probably not. But if for some weird reason they are, where would Shawn McDermott rank as a head coaching candidate for the Cardinals? I'll tell you what right now. If it's Sean McDermott or Vance Joesph, I'm doing circles around the idea of bringing Sean McDermott here. And there are some things that you look at Sean McDermott and you say to yourself, well, that's interesting. This year, they had the number one passing defense in the NFL. They had the number one passing defense in the NFL. Rushing defense, complete different thing. But they have done that before. And I think my guy, Saul in the chat, puts it fairly clearly. Sean McDermott should absolutely get an interview with the Arizona Cardinals. Because he does fill and check a couple of boxes. He is a veteran head coach. And he has shown the ability to stabilize an organization. Is he the coach that's going to win you a Super Bowl? There's not much data to prove that that's the case. And in big games, I think he gets tight coaching them. But he has shown before he got to Buffalo, he is a very bright defensive mind. He has shown the ability to be a leader where it took the Bills a lot for them to finally pull the plug on him. And I think a lot of that has to do with ownership and management really liked him. But when you lose for a 20th straight time in the playoffs, it feels like, with Josh Allen as your quarterback now, the standard is just much higher. Sean McDermott in Arizona feels like an adult. It doesn't feel like a high ceiling move where you think this guy's definitely going to bring a Super Bowl to Arizona. I'm not even sure it feels like consistent each and every year you're making the playoff type of move. But what I will say is it does feel like a high floor move. Or even now, in his final season in Buffalo, despite the rushing defense not being great, they had the number 1 passing defense in the NFL. And from his time in, I believe, Jacksonville, you saw that translate as well defensively. And he feels like a leader, and he feels like an adult in the room. And he has been a head coach before. He knows what stability looks like in Buffalo. Can he bring that to Arizona and find that here? Maybe. I'm going to be honest with you, he's not very high on my list of guys. When you fail as many times you have with Josh Allen, I'm looking at you a little bit differently. But I can't say that I would be against that hire. Especially from what's reported out there from guys like Vance Joesph potentially getting the job. He's a bright defensive mind. He's been a head coach before. He seems like a leader. He seems like an adult in the room, a calming presence. He knows what stability looks like in the Buffalo Bills. Maybe he can bring that to Arizona. But none of this matters if you don't give the control and the money he wants to come here. We're just wasting our breath if that is if the Cardinals aren't willing to do that. So, am I over the moon for Sean McDermott? No. But I would not be against the hire. And a lot of it has to do with his experience, not necessarily X's and O's. All right, guys. With that being said, for the 145 of you guys in the chat this morning or in the show this morning, whether it's on Twitter or here on YouTube, appreciate you guys making this show a part of your day. Do me a favor if you're on YouTube, and if you're not on YouTube, go over to YouTube and do me a favor. Hit that like button. It helps me out tremendously. Hit that like, share, subscribe button. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. If you're on YouTube and you haven't done that on Twitter or on any social media platform, do that. I am here every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 8 a.m. talking all things Arizona sports, although today it is continuously dominated by the incompetencies of the Arizona Cardinals. But with that being said, hit that like, share, subscribe button. Follow me on all social media platforms at Ben Garcia Show. I got to get to another baby appointment interview. I've got to do the dad thing here and still getting used to that. But with that being said, I will talk to you guys on Wednesday at 8 a.m. where we're hopefully dissecting real coaching candidates and God, not Vance Joesph. Thank you for everyone in the chat being here. Talk to you guys then.